Hello, solutionaries. Welcome to the Awaken Spanda podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Arlen Ruddy. Thank you for joining us and thank you for tuning in. If you are new to the podcast, Awaken Spanda is a platform that's dedicated to supporting those on their spiral to wholeness through sharing stories, wisdom, and knowledge that can be directly applicable for generating and creating more energetic freedom within the self. Here we make the unconscious conscious daily, so if you are down with that sort of thing, then you may want to stick around to see what we got in store. Today's guest is the creator of sexual kung fu. He helps people master their sexual energy so they can magnetize their ideal lives. He's also a certified instructor of Taoist internal arts, and he specializes in integrating powerful energetic practices into the modern world. He is an amazing man. I met him about a month ago. His name is Johnathan White, and I am so thrilled to have him on today. So let's get into it. All right, we are here with Johnathan White, creator of Sexual Kung Fu. Welcome, Johnathan.
Hey, Arlen. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. I am super, super excited to have you here today. I have been wanting to find somebody to talk about the subject of sex and sexual energy for quite some time. And I've been kind of putting it out there, and the universe had our paths cross this past, what was it, like a month ago at Camp D?
Yeah, about a month ago.
Yeah, so this is just it's like this is awesome, and I'm super excited. Yeah, yeah, and it's really such a powerful subject, really, when we talk about sexual energy and and we'll get into this, but I think that's partially why I had a really hard time coming on this podcast today. But sometimes it's weird how forces in yourself are like will come up. But doing something you're supposed to do. You're supposed to share. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, what I love about you is that I'm also way into energetics and and into qigong and whatnot. And you've done a lot of internal practices, and you do currently a lot of internal practices, which is really what I guess sexual kung fu would be all about. But could you maybe start by explaining to us a little bit about some of those practices?
Yeah. So, sexual kung fu, it's kind of this Taoist thing, right? The ancient Chinese yogis. Kung fu is basically, it's a skill, it's a discipline attained over a period of time of consistent training, right? And so in regards to sexual energy, it's training every day, disciplining yourself to work with your sexual energy in a more harmonious way, right? And this involves working with the subtle energies of the body, because sexual energy is obviously one kind of specific type of energy. And so to gain, skill in working with this type of energy, you've got to get to know the energy body, so to speak, right? Like acupuncturists work with these energetic meridians of the body, like these rivers of energy flowing through the body. And with some practice, you can learn to start feeling these energy channels and directing the flow of them. This is really it's kind of the underlying structure of our physical body, is this energetic matrix, which is forming the physical body. And when our flow of energy gets out of balance, we feel sick, we feel diseased, we feel stressed, whatever. So that's something that happens as we age, is these channels start to flow less efficiently. Things get blocked, or maybe there's too much energy in one of the channels and we get out of balance. So that's what really qigong and these internal arts is all about, is working with this energy system of the human body and learning to balance it and increase the flow of energy throughout it so that we feel vibrant, healthy, and vital again. And that kind of sets the foundation for working with sexual energy, because our patterns of experiencing sexual energy and the way that it flows in our body, especially men, we tend to be very stuck in a one directional flow, which is usually out of our body. And so the sexual kung fu involves basically learning to consciously guide the sexual energy inwards, inside of the body, so that we can have a more internal sexual experience. We can have multiple orgasms, so men can have non-ejaculatory orgasms, and so we can use this energy to improve our health, improve our vitality, improve our creativity, And so it really is an internal art. There's a lot of meditation,
Mhm.
breath work, chi practices, but it's a very, very powerful system.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is perfect to kind of go into this part of it. We and I heard you talk about this at Camp D too, but where I was kind of where I was kind of getting into it before on my podcast, I was talking about relationships and dating in this culture and that sort of thing. And you know, I think the the problem in this culture is we've kind of there's just a lack of understanding of what sexual energy really even is, or what sex for that matter is. And so we obviously we're all everybody's walking around in this program, this matrix mind of what sex is like, due to what we see in media, or movies, pornography, mostly, I would say. um and so I was wondering, if you could speak a little bit into that, into like, you know the the world of, we live in, and how we associate sex in the in the not in the full sense. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Um,
So this is definitely, very, very relevant for the age we're living in, right? We're programmed from a young age of how we view the world, the beliefs we have, and we often get locked into this control system. We just repeat these things we heard, we repeat these actions we're told to do. And obviously sex is a major part of this, because most of us, I certainly learned about sex primarily through porn and through movies and things like that. And this is the majority of the education we have around sex is through porn. And this causes us to have a very distorted view of sex, because the porn industry stresses this like very physical act. It's often very uh, often even violent. There's a lack of any sort of emotional connection, and it causes all kinds of issues in regards to how we see sexuality, especially for men. We see sex as being this thing where we're like just supposed to like find some random person and like thrust into them unconsciously, right, to try to satisfy this animalistic instincts. And it also programs men to have primarily ejaculatory orgasms, which actually deplete their energy, right? And so most of us spend our lives trying to repeat what we see in porn, thinking that that's how we're supposed to have sex. And it often just
yeah,
leads us into toxic relationships, unhealthy sexual patterns, even abuse and things like that. And so in my opinion, it's just another one of the control systems of humanity. So for me, this journey of, I guess, reconditioning myself was one of the most healing things I've been through, especially changing the way I worked with my sexual energy, getting out of this uh, addiction to pornographic images, addiction to
right.
this very lustful based approach of sex, this animalistic approach of sex, and remembering that sex is actually something very sacred. It's
Yeah.
potentially a multidimensional experience. And when you learn to open your heart and connect that with your sexual center, so you're not just experiencing this low vibrational quality of lust, you mix that sexual desire with the energy of the heart, it raises the vibration, it makes the energy more expansive. And sex starts to become about connecting with someone. It becomes about sharing your energy with someone rather than trying to take something from them. And I think if everyone in the world uh, kind of goes through this transformation of remembering what sex, the true potential of it, the true healing and balancing potential of it, we're going to see a very dramatic shift in our world. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work.
Yeah. And that's why I love what you do. And I'm saying it really is, when I think I said it earlier, but it's so rare to find somebody. I mean, it's literally been like 2 years since I'm like, okay, I want to like talk to somebody about this in particular, the subject. And it's particularly a man. And I'm like, and it's just, I'm like, I don't know, the universe will deliver, I guess, when it's time. But it is rare. It's hard to find people to. Well, first of all, just talking about sex can be in general, especially in this manner. It's just it's rare, and I think slowly but surely we're getting there. But it's just the 3D reality we live in is very fixated in the physical, and the delusion or the distorted version of sexuality, which
Definitely.
in essence I believe siphons our energy, our life force, our our true energy. So giving it away, like you're saying, is absolutely where we need to reverse things a bit. I particularly like, I've been single for a while, like a couple few years now since my last Kundalini Awakening. And that and so it was really by choice. I mean, it was just I have no like until I meet somebody on my vibrational, wavelength, then we'll get there. But at this point, um, I've been, I've been celibate. Like celibacy is a thing, and it's not. I think it's been frowned upon so much or distorted through like the Christian church. There's that whole image of celibacy that just like this, you're depriving yourself of something, or so I've noticed, in working with people and talking to people, just observing that people, it's just that, people want to grow in their spirituality and all these things, and they want to expand, but yet they still want to date, all these people and play the same, like, um, the same story out. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so what would you say to like a single person who is like, wanting to like what kind of practices can they involve themselves in? What can they do to like really begin to harness an internal, like cultivate their sexual energy and use it for like other things in life
Yeah.
besides just
Yeah.
the act,
I think this is a
you
great
know?
question, and this is something I experienced as well. You're talking about going through a period of celibacy, and I experienced this
Hmm.
myself when I was getting into this practice. I went through a period of, I think it was, about 2 years where I was single because I was very picky about who I
Yeah.
was, relating with. Because yeah, we're kind of conditioned in our society. It's like relationships can be a source of almost like an addiction. It's like I need to have this person, and so you like people often go from person to person to person, bringing up the same kind of, repeating the same issues in the relationship. The same wounds get brought up over and over again, and they never really get to the roots of what's causing these, lack of harmony in their relationships.
Yeah.
And so for me, having this long period of being, single and just being in my own energy field, getting to know myself better, really helped me go through some deep, tremendous growth and healing, so that I was able to attract a partner who was much more on my wavelength. And I think really this is the best time to start this type of training. I always recommend
Yeah.
people, when you're learning to like change your sexual habits, learn a more, sacred approach to sexual energy, a more conscious approach. It's difficult to just go straight into working with that with a partner, right? Because during sex, there's all your partner's energy plus your energy, all this excitement. It becomes a bit difficult to kind of decipher what's happening and learn to control it, especially for men as they're learning to have, non-ejaculatory experiences, right? So, it's great to do this work by yourself in the beginning, and that's what I
Right.
actually recommend. Is uh,
Yeah.
learn to feel your own sexual energy. What does just your sexual energy feel like? How does it move in your body? Can you guide it to
Mhm.
move in different ways, right? And you start to work with that, and you can use self pleasure as a way to unlock deeper layers of your sexual energy and use it to charge up your body, directing that orgasmic energy upwards in the body, into the organs, into the brains, enhancing the function of your body. So you learn to channel the sexual energy through your body. You build up the sexual charge, you move it through the body, store it in your body, and then you can put it into anything. You can put it into your art, your work, your, whatever you're doing. You develop this connection with your sexual energy. So it no longer becomes about, I need this person out here to please me. I need to take things from this person. You become self-sufficient. You learn to work with this energy yourself. You learn to get into orgasmic states by yourself, and you really develop this self-love and self-sufficiency, so that when you do decide to connect with another person again, it's no longer about this, like, I have this emptiness that I need this person to fill. You're now overflowing with this energy. So now it becomes like, okay, what can we create together? We're both overflowing with this energy. How can we, create something together? So it just totally changes your dynamic.
Yes, I love that. I love everything you just said. It's so true. And it's really, I mean, it's so empowering when you have control of your sexual energy or your life force in essence. It's yeah. And I don't know. I need to find my own ways to like encourage this more in people because it's it's hard to in society it's just like people it's hard to break through the barrier of the thought that like like, oh, you just need to, like, a lot of people, like, if somebody's stressed out, it's like, oh, you just need to have sex or something like that. It's like, no, it's like, it's just this mindset. If we could just switch the mindset into like, no, you just need to breathe, or like, you need to,
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's so simple, but it's so empowering. And like, I know, like, everything that's, manifest in my life since, I mean, that last Kundalini Awakening, which I want to talk about some of that too, but, and me like really learning the dynamics of my energy body, and the way it came about is pretty amazing. And even qigong, like, kind of just entering into my life, it's all like exactly the direction um I was intended to head, I guess, for this reason. So I can talk about this and share it and implement it. But um oh, where was I going? Oh my God, I just lost. The subject, it really means so much to me. And it's just, I haven't been able to talk about it, so this is like a whole new thing. um but okay, so where do I want to go from here? Okay, so since as I mentioned Kundalini, you had said during your talk, when you were talking, um that you had this Kundalini experience, that you had an actual Kundalini awakening. And I'm wondering, like, could you shed a little more into that? Like, because this was before you created sexual kung fu, right?
Yeah, sure. So this was let's see, it was about 14 years ago. Oh, I was 19 years old, and
Right.
a friend gave me some psilocybin mushrooms, and I was like, all right, I'm
Yeah.
gonna eat these and like go on a
Mhm.
walk in the hills. And I was really kind of on this kind of beginning this sort of spiritual quest. Like I was starting to ask questions like, who am I really? What is my purpose here? What is really going on in this world? And so I really had this kind of underlying intention for this experience, I would say. But at the same time, I was I was a musician. I was like in a rock band. I was just, I like to smoke weed and get high. So it's just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna eat these things and like see what happens. And it was a very, very profound experience. And I've talked to other people who take, plant medicines and things like that, and I've had them several other times as well. But this specific experience was something very, very unique. And from
Yes.
what I've seen, it's not something that happens to a lot of people. I had
Right.
what I would consider a Kundalini awakening. Energy was like pulsing up my spine. I had this complete transformational experience. I felt like out of my body. I felt like at one with all of the universe. It was like a complete dissolving of who I used to be until that point, and it just completely opened me up to an entirely different perspective of the universe, what it is to be human, and what's going on this planet. It's much more than I can put into words, but it was an incredibly profound experience, and it completely
Hmm.
changed the course of my life. After this experience, I was like, wow, what happened? How can I do that again? Like, how can I stay in that state? And so I was like, well, I just need to take more mushrooms, but it didn't work, right? I ended up having like very terrifying experiences and just weird things. I never quite got to that state again. And this led me on this quest uh, to study. This led me into basically learning yoga, meditation, qigong, like these ancient practices, uh, because I realized that these are tools developed to kind of get us into this similar state of consciousness, this expanded state of consciousness, but in a much more sustainable way, in a way that you can integrate into your daily
Right.
life. And I have to say that having this experience was as beautiful as it was also very difficult in that to go back to the normal life after having this type of experience, and like trying to talk to my friends and telling them what I experienced, and they didn't get it, and it's just like I felt
Right.
very alienated for a long period of my life because of this kind of awakening experience I had.
Right. No, I totally get it. That's a very similar to, mine when it happened. I mean, I think it was like a week or two later, like I was quitting my job, and like I was like, but I downloaded, I mean, there was so much information that was like in my awareness all of a sudden. It was just like almost like, like the book was just wide open. And so I began my journey like with sound and frequency and energy again, like because I started energy work. I was into energy work and martial arts in my early 20s, and then like I went, then life happened, a bunch of shit, like kind of went on, and then when I had two Kundalini moments, but the last one was just the one that like it was that after that one it was just like on, like I don't know, I broke through a lot of um uh I don't know, I broke through a lot, basically, energetically. And it just catapulted me forward. on my journey, and learning energetics. Like that was because when I could identify truly too that it was an energetic experience I was having, then it was like, oh my God. And then with the sound and the frequency, that's the next level of the energetics too. So, and it's funny, I kind of want to tell you the story because I find it to be really interesting. But I after I had that, okay, so after that movement, it was like one day I was laying on the floor, and I was listening to like a podcast or something on my phone, on a YouTube thing. I don't know who the guy was. I don't know what I don't know what I was listening to. But but this guy was talking about, he was an energy healer, and he basically he was like, they were like, oh, they were praising him, and they're like, oh, they're like, you do these radical things. They're like, yeah, you don't even have to really touch anybody, do you? Because with like Reiki, usually like you give your hands over somebody, that kind of thing. And he's like, no, he's like, I just need to connect into you. That's it. Like, like, no, like he could just be talking to you or whatnot. No having to like, and make the like touch or make the effort to like be in somebody's presence. And then he was like, they were like, so you don't even like, they were like, you don't talk much about the chakras or any of that kind of stuff. And he's like, no, he's like, when you elevated in your practice of energy, you focus on the three energy centers. And it didn't click. I mean, nothing. I was just like, wow. But all what I will say is I felt like my soul left out my body. Like when he said that, it literally felt like I was like, yeah, like it resonated so deep in my
Mm.
body. I was, yes, I don't know what this man's talking about, but this is it. And and it was that night that I was having this like, and I think I talked about this when I was at Camp Deep, but when I felt like I had that shackle on my leg, it was felt like an energy shackle on my
Mm.
leg. I don't know if you remember that, but
Yeah, yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
yeah. So something let after I remember hearing this man say that. I mean, and I was in and out of listening and like trying to like stretch my leg out, and something in my soul said, "Put your hands on your leg and just breathe." And I started directing my breath. Just this is just an innate practice, like directing through my breath, my energy through my hands and into my leg. And all with this thought of like, this is it. I don't know, I just knew it was gonna it was gonna get well. I could do this. And it was that evening I had this energy come over me, like, and I went to bed. Don't know, I just hung that podcast up. No big deal, right? Went to bed, and then I felt this burning, like, Kundalini fire energy just moving up my leg, and it moved all the way up to my hips. Anyway, needless to say, it was a complete miracle. And that pain that I experienced off and on for like such a long time, totally, it dissipated, gone, dissolved,
Mm.
like no more. But coming back around, then it was just like spirit kept leading me to qigong and back to martial arts and all this stuff. And then as I started studying, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I created a whole curriculum with breath work with the three energy centers. It's just from me, my creation through spirit. And then it's like, and then I came into qigong and started studying the three dantians. And I'm like,
Mm.
you know, it's just wild. Like that's the kind of shit, like when we talk about like it's all within us. The
Oh
whole
yeah.
book, the whole story is inside of us. We know it. We're just remembering, literally. It's like just removing the film and the programs. And I think like that is in essence what you're doing as well. Like with this whole movement of sexual kung fu is helping to, remove that film, that distortion of what, our sexual energy really is and what it's about. Um,
Absolutely. It's
yeah,
it's really our creative power. It is uh,
yeah,
our personal power. It's this power to birth, to recreate, and to. The problem is that people are unconscious of it, and they're not aware of what they're doing with their
yeah,
sexual energy. It's driving them. So when you start to work with it harmoniously and drive it, then it's you can do absolutely anything with it. And I think that's what you're talking about, like how the answers are within us. I think that's the most relevant thing for this time right now. Is like so many people are looking for someone else to save them, to save the world and things like that. But that's not, really what's gonna happen, right? Whenever you're reliant on something else, you're easily manipulated. It's really coming down to us all doing this inner work. and remembering who we truly are, remembering this potential we have within us. And when we start to go within, when we start to quiet our minds, get out of the noise of the external world, then we start to activate this deeper layer of ourself, and all kind of miraculous things happen.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I was so glad actually that when I found out you were going to be at Camp D, I was like, oh my God, I was like, we are totally doing a podcast because because I was so excited because I followed your stuff on YouTube because I don't know, I just came across it and whatever. And then, it's okay. So I did Camp D last year too. And it's like, it's one thing to like listen to people talk, and we can listen to people talk about things all day and their experiences and all that. But like, I love that like this year at Camp D and you being one of those people brought like the Qigong and the actual like work into the event. Like, because we all breathe together. We all got and moved our own energy. Like we actually did sessions together and workshops. Whereas like the year before, I don't think we never like I think I was like the one there's a few people doing things, but like it's just like, I think that that's really where we got to get to. And I know, I was listening to Journey to Truth last night, the podcast with Tyler and them, and Tyler said something like, it just seems that people get uninterested when it's like, when we're talking about the stuff that's actually pertains to doing the work, like where we actually have to like go into our practice, like we have to like do our qigong and like breathe and like, and create that time and that space. They get bored because they just, they want to hear all the things, they just, like he said, the bells and whistles. They want to like, you want to hear the experience. You just want to listen and be entertained. You don't want to do the work. And, but that's what I love about, you coming and just the experience this year seemed like it was more, there was more work involved. And
definitely. And, that's another thing very relevant is, we kind of grow up in this instant gratification world where it's like, we want to just push a button, be entertained. We want to just take a pill and have everything fixed. But the true holistic, I don't know, therapies, healings and things, modalities of transforming yourself, it's not really an instant process, right? You have to do the work.
Yeah.
It's a daily practice. And I remember kind of in my journey, I was just, absorbing all this information, listening to a lot of people talking, reading lots of books, but like nothing really dramatically changed for me. I was like, okay, I understand all these things theoretically, but like it was until I began a direct practice to really feel the energy in my body, to learn how to move it, to learn how to transform myself, until I actually had something to do. Nothing was really changing for me. It's like what, my teacher, one of my teachers, Michael Wynn, says, talk does not cook the rice. And I think that's very relevant. It's like we can talk about this stuff all day, but if we don't have a practice, we don't have a method to work with, then, nothing is probably going to change.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You'll just be spinning your wheels. So like, back to the pornography thing, is I kind of, that's something that's so, it's so prevalent. Every time you see anything really media related or whatnot, it's all sexualization of everything. But like, like men or women out there that like are struggling with like maybe they struggling with, but like maybe they're into porn and like that's their thing, and like that's where like when they get emotionally moved they move to that as their gratification or how they deal with things maybe or something like that. Like what are like what is something you would tell somebody? What's like the first thing to do like in those moments, like if you're gonna like go towards that, like in an emotional moment or something?
Yeah,
Like,
well, understanding that porn is a drug, it affects the brain just like a drug. It's more addictive than opiates. It wreaks
right.
complete havoc on your dopamine receptors, all kinds of things. Not to mention energetically what you're intertwining yourself with. When you're watching porn and masturbating to it, you're getting connected to some really nasty energy. So it's just like any sort of addictive vice that you have. It's like for me, what worked for me was basically finding something better and more holistic for myself. Like when I began practicing Qigong, like I got really serious. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this every day, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. I'm committing myself to doing this practice every single day. I noticed very interestingly that my bad habits just started to drop out of my life. I wasn't even like trying to stop them necessarily, like, drinking alcohol, watching porn. Because I was becoming so sensitive, I was starting to fill myself up with chi. And it was like, I started becoming very aware of, oh, when I look at porn, I feel really weird afterwards. Like I just have this weird image glued to my mind and it just doesn't feel good anymore. I think I'm not going to do that. Right. So, the best advice I could give you is to, if you're like trying to get rid of this habit, then find something else to do with your time that's a bit better. So I always tell people, have like an action plan for yourself. If you're used to, every night, 7 o'clock, you start to feel lonely, bored, and you're on Pornhub watching porn, have a plan. Like, okay, instead of watching porn, I'm going to go out into nature. I'm going to go for a hike, or I'm going to, hang out with my group of friends, or I'm going to do my breath work. I'm going to go to the gym, work out, whatever. Have something ready for yourself to do instead. So you kind of get this natural high, you get this feel good thing without, doing something kind of weird with your energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
And one other point I want to make here really quick is that part of sexual kung fu is rewiring your experience of sex and sexual energy. Most people, especially men, were used to like kind of impulsively releasing the sexual tension from our body. For a man, an ejaculation is a release of their life force, and it kind of releases this buildup of sexual energy, which they feel is tension, right? When you learn to move this energy through your body and kind of bring that sexual desire to completion in an internal way, it changes your dynamic. You leave a sexual practice feeling completely charged up and great, instead of feeling like tired, fatigued, and you want to roll over and fall asleep. So it just completely changes what you desire as far as sex and how you experience this.
Right. Yeah. What would you say, like, when people like come, like, work with you and do work with, I guess because you have courses online, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, what are like some of the main reasons, what are people like coming with? Like, what do you feel like they're coming to?
Yeah. So the main reasons I see, so I'm working mostly with men primarily. My partner Mariah, she does work with women as well. But so mostly I have, people come to me because porn addiction's a big one. It's something I talk about a lot. So it's something a lot of men in this world are struggling with.
I love that, and I want to emphasize that because that's so important, and that's where I feel like things need to be heard, because I really do. Personally, even with my own experience, I know that the entity attachment that comes also with pornography and with mixing with sexual partners and things that, so yeah, go ahead. I'm listening. Yeah, it's just it needs to be touched on so much more. And like, yeah.
Yeah,
Go
I mean,
ahead.
it's so normalized in our society. It's like, oh yeah, what kind of porn do you like? I remember I was working at one of the last jobs I worked at a few years ago. I was working in a kitchen. This guy asked me, he's like, hey, what kind of porn do you like? I'm like, I don't watch porn. And he just like, I might as well told him I was from Pluto or something. Like, just the look he
Oh
gave me.
my
It's
God.
like, what?
I know. I know. No, I know, even from like women that I know and that I'm friends with, or that I've, like been around, like it's so normalized. Even, I mean, men and women are just alike these days when it comes to pornography. So, I mean, it's really not any different. Like yeah, I mean, for me, like when I tell people like I haven't had like sex with like a partner in like a while, it's like it's always been like, they just kind of like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like something must be wrong with me. And I actually do wonder what in the deeper sense they're actually thinking. Cause they tell me things like, oh, you need to get laid, or like you need to do. I'm like, no, I'm actually like, it's like, do you see what I'm doing though? Like, what are you doing in life? Like, I'm like actually doing things and creating, and like, I'm happy and I'm like sober. Like, I don't need external things to be, happy. And it's just, anyway, people who really know, they get it though. But
Oh yeah.
it's yeah, it's just so normalized, and to the point where I just think people even blindly just don't realize they're doing things that are really harmful to themselves. Like even following, like, for like guys in particular, or women too, but like on Instagram, it's like following, like like maybe they follow like all these like models and these girls with their it's just very like all like sexualized, or
Oh yeah.
like it's, and they don't even realize it. I mean, they're putting that every time they scroll, even if they're not looking at it, like for like really looking at it, they're still, it's all in there, their eyeballs are catching it at some point. Like, it's just constant. It's like little things like that, I think people just don't even realize. They just think it's so normal. Well, I mean, why
Yeah.
wouldn't I follow
the models. Why wouldn't I?
I mean,
And
that's the world we live in. It's just this unconscious
yeah,
programming. We're not even aware. People are just living on autopilot, basically. And if something's different, they're like, "What? That's crazy."
that's crazy. That's crazy. How can you not have sex? How are you not dating? Like, trying to hook me up with all these people. I'm like, really? I was like, is that what you think of me? Like,
I can say
I'm like
that
so
the
not
2 years of my
there.
life I was single was one of the best 2 years of my life.
It's amazing.
There's no
It's really,
drama.
I mean, yeah, it's like, it's amazing. And I recommend it truly to anybody out there that's
Mhm.
like single or now, or just breaking up, or like, it's just so, I mean, I've done this off and on a few times in my life, and for whatever reason, I guess I have that gift. But it's only gotten better, and it's just, I know that I like, when I do come across that partner, when it does happen, it's like he's gonna be amazing. Like, it's gonna be like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, I wouldn't really, it wouldn't be any less, and
Oh
it
yeah.
kind of has to, when you know about, your vibration too. It's like, why would I'm not going to go any, it's got to be like this equal exchange, if you will.
Oh yeah.
And especially with sex, I definitely want to be able to have these sorts of experiences, like like you and Mariah have that, like that equalness, and that, like, you can talk about it,
Mhm.
things like that. Like, I remember, like, dating people, you can't even talk about like sex. You can't, it's like, we don't talk about it, we just do it, and we
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
yes, doing, like, yeah. So I don't know where we were at that.
Oh, we're talking about the main reasons that people come to my work, basically.
Yes, yeah, main reasons.
So I touched
But
on
go
porn
ahead.
addiction. Another big one for men is premature ejaculation. Average
Okay.
statistic for men worldwide is that they last about 5 minutes during sex before ejaculating, which isn't very long.
Wow. No.
So that's a big one.
No.
So learning to control their ejaculation. Also having non-ejaculatory orgasms, um, because the ejaculatory orgasm for a man is actually really not that great compared to what they could be experiencing. Right, when they're able to have multiple orgasms without ejaculating, they have so much more energy. They become, better lovers. They have more stamina, more endurance, and just more connection with their partner because they're not just trying to like get to this quick-lived, release
Hmm.
of their sexual energy. Right. Not to say that men can never ejaculate, but being able to regulate that's very important. And then I would say another big thing is this integration of sexual energy with the spiritual path, because um,
Yeah.
again, getting out of this very base level animalistic experience of sex, which is why I think a lot of like spiritual or religious paths, they kind of say sex is wrong, you must be celibate. But the thing is that it's that distorted version of sex that causes imbalance. When you learn how to have this more conscious, full body, multidimensional uh, uh,
Yeah.
experience of sex, where you're exchanging with your partner, opening all the energy centers, then it's very, very powerful. And it really integrates well with the spiritual path because that sexual energy can boost your practice, boost your meditation, boost the lifestyle that you're on. So I would say
Yeah.
that these are some of the main things that men struggle with and come to me for.
Right. And it really is something. If you have a partner, I mean, they got to be on that same, like, to really gain what you could, you know, it'd be kind of hard to be like the one, like, trying to figure it out, and then they're like,
Yeah.
well, but
It's like you can think of you and your partner as two batteries, and if one of the batteries is always drained, always depleted, they're going to pull from the other one. It's inevitably what happens in
yeah,
relationships, and
yeah,
it becomes very draining. So when both people are charging themselves up, they both have a practice, they're both kind of dealing with their shadows and things like that instead of projecting everything on
yeah,
the other person. Then it's absolutely magical, and you just light each other up like crazy.
that's it. Yeah,
And that's what
that's it.
relationships are meant to be, in my opinion.
Yes, yes. I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly, that's how I see it. That's how I see it for myself. If if anything, and like, and in life, like, we were made. I mean, especially being masculine and feminine. It's the energy together is just, it charges.
Oh
It's
yeah.
power. And yeah, I love it. I love it. Can't. I was like sitting in your workshop, and I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, okay, spirit. I'm like, I think I'm ready for my partner now. Been doing this alone for a while, but
Yeah.
but no, I know it'll be amazing when it does.
Oh yeah.
When it
All
does
in
show
all
up.
in divine timing.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And it's funny to notice how, like, at your like, how. when you bring up sex or just even the word sex, like it's just like you watch people kind of like they're like either incredibly intrigued and they're like incredibly nervous or incredibly like I got to get out of here, like just get out. Like I mean, there was one lady that was like running out of there. She's like, yeah, I don't think stay for this.
Isn't it interesting how like we're bombarded with sexual imagery like 24/7? It's everywhere, but so like we're obsessed with it on one hand, but at the same time we're there's so much shame and guilt around it. We're afraid to talk about it openly, right? It's this very interesting thing, and I think that's one of the main things causing so much confusion for people is that, you know, that kind of black and white aspect of it.
Yeah, it's the demonizing, it's the lack of the wholeness, you know, like when we think of the polarity, the divide, it's always like it's good or it's bad or it's this or it's that, and that's literally what I see. That's the fragment. If we could just see it as a whole thing, like there is, you know, I mean, sex especially, if it's so powerful that they put it in all advertisements and they use it for sway and they use it for all stuff, like then think on the good side how much power and how much force it can have when you use it in the way it's intended to be used. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I really actually do really think that before I got on the podcast with you, I was like feeling kind of like my body was feeling kind of like I was like, I don't know if I could do this. My energy was all weird and I was getting kind of like sick feeling. And I really think that in essence, I was like, I'm about to this conversation that I was going to have with you, to me is really, really, I've seen it as very important. And just, you know, like I said, the power of sex. And I think for me, I think that that's relevant to what we were just saying, why it was almost like something with like trying to stop me, like getting on here and saying this, but like it is hard to open up when we talk about sex and we talk about these things.
And it's so healing once you do, like I think that's, you know, like men join my course, they're in the group, and it's like they have a space to talk about this stuff, and it's just like it's so healing, it's so profound, and it's so fulfilling for me to kind of be able to hold this space, to have, you know, other people going through this journey, going through this transformation, because it's such a deeply healing experience. And again, that's why I think this is some of the most important work that anyone in the world can do right now.
Especially, yeah, absolutely. And especially, I mean, with men, like what you're doing is so just it's amazing. Because, you know, women, we've been, I think, not that we've been doing it for like longer, but we in a way, I guess we have. We've been, you know, kind of like, I don't know, I've done a lot of women's work, but it's harder to see, you know, you don't see men's work as much. I mean, more these days you do. I would definitely say that we're definitely coming into a new world, like as far as, you know, awareness and consciousness, but yeah, it is rare with men, and it's so powerful when I think the masculine energy comes into that.
It is
the awareness.
Yeah.
And
I think for a lot of men, it's sometimes difficult for them to, like, you know, admit, yes, I have this, you know, men tend to be very prideful. They don't want to like, you know, open up about this. They're often very blocked. So I think it can be difficult for men to accept that, yes, we need help. I need help. I have this issue and I want, you know, to be vulnerable and share this with other people.
Yeah. The pressure of society and feeling like, you know, am I not manly enough if I feel this way, or if I, you know, yeah, very powerful. Love it. And I'm going to be talking to Mariah actually next week. I'm sure you're aware of that, but yeah, I'm excited. So we'll talk a little more into women, you know, the woman side of things, I guess. So that'll be cool. But yeah, so tell us a little bit give us some information like on your website and like, and your, you know, tell us where we can find you.
Yeah. So you can find me on pretty much all social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, just search for Sexual Kung Fu. My website is jonathanwhitelifestyle.com. I've got a 12-week course for men, which is a super in-depth training into basically all this work. My partner, Mariah, and I also created a course for women, Multi-Orgasmic Goddess. So yeah, you can find those. Just look up my social media, find my website, and you'll find more information about those.
Very cool. And yeah, I know you're pretty busy. You're doing events in the coming weeks here?
No events coming up in the next few weeks. Yeah.
Just travel. That was just other travel.
Yeah, I'm going on a trip to Mount Shasta here in a couple of weeks.
Nice. Well, yeah, I hope to see you doing all kinds of things here in the future, and I'm
Oh
sure I
yeah.
will. I mean, you're right on time. Like this, like with the world these days and
Oh
everything,
yeah.
it's like you're here for this. That's that's a fact. And I just appreciate what you do.
Yeah, yeah. Likewise, love the work you're doing, and always great to connect with you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, so we will hopefully talk again here soon.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. All right, guys. So thank you for tuning in. As within, so without, as above, so below. Love is truly all that is. So be it. Wholeness. Peace.
Thank you for tuning into the Awaken Spanda podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please stay tuned because we got a lot more in store. And personally, I am really excited about it. Also, if you'd like to come to any local events, check the website www.awakenspanda.com. As well, if you'd like to book any privates or any small group sessions in state or out of state, you can email at awakenspanda@gmail.com. That's it. I wish you well. I wish you a wonderful day. Wholeness.